Welcome back. We are having, another edition of the On the Mic podcast. I am your host, as always, Mike Pendleton. And I don't know if my timing is just great or if I set this up unintentionally, but on Canada Day, we have one of the best prospects in the UFC from American Top Team. More importantly, from Canada, Gillian Robertson. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just getting ready for my sub-underground grappling match coming up. So still staying busy in training.
Yeah, like how do you okay, so we'll talk about your win over Cortney Casey just a couple of weeks ago, but you stayed active and you're getting on submission underground. So like, did you kind of know that you were going to do these back to back, and why did you decide to do it that way?
No, I didn't know I was going to do it back to back. It was literally on the flight home from Vegas. So after I beat Cortney Casey, Jessica I and Amanda Lowen were supposed to compete that night. So just me talking shit, I went on the post and I was like, I want the winner of Jessica I and Amanda Lowen. And later that night, Chael Sonnen was they were announcing on Sub Underground. He's like, I already got the next opponent for Amanda Lowen. Gillian Robertson will be here. And I was like, oh shit, they actually saw it. So that's how that ended up coming through.
That is amazing. And obviously your grappling was on full display against Cortney Casey, and you said you like being a backpack, and I've told the story many times. I don't even know if my one trip down to American Top Team, if you were there, but I would have seen it on full display there. But Dean Thomas has been very critical and crucial for me in all that I do, whether it's being on this podcast. He was the first coach to ever allow me into a big gym like ATT and trained with me for 2 days. But when you have the background that you have and you have a coach like Dean Thomas and you guys are inseparable, why is it important for you to just stick to what you know you're good at and not try to go outside of your comfort zone?
Well, and no matter what, I feel like with my jiu-jitsu, it's the fastest way to get out of the fight. So it's like I know that I can get in and out of there quick if I'm getting these girls to the ground. So everything is just all calculated around my strongest finishing point, which is my rear naked choke. So from my stand-up to the wrestling to the jiu-jitsu, everything is just setting it up just so I can get to the throat.
What was it in your career? Maybe let's stroll down memory lane here for a moment. What made you focus on using your jiu-jitsu? Was there a certain fight, or was it during training where you were like, I love choking the shit out of people, I'm going to do it all the time, this is what I'm going to get known for?
I guess it just kind of came naturally to me more than anything else. I started kickboxing first, but jiu-jitsu just kind of clicked. Like I fell in love with it, and if you watch my first amateur MMA fight, it was literally 100% on the feet. I didn't know jiu-jitsu at all at that point. And I really don't know what it was specifically, but something just clicked, and it's what came naturally to me.
I feel like I'm like asking you a bunch of training questions right now, but when you have such an established ground game, and I'm not here to say you lack in any other department, but when it's so recognizable just how good you are on the ground, what is training like for you? I think that's something a lot of younger fighters may not know, and I think you could speak to that a little bit, is that, hey, maybe you have the strongest stand-up in your gym, but if you focus more on everything else that you think you need to improve on, that could help you mold your game better. So what is training like for you? Do you spend a lot of time rolling and jiu-jitsu, or do you worry or focus on other stuff as well?
Recently I've been just working with Dean. Like, I'm not with American Top Team anymore. It's just me and Dean. And he has a couple other people staying with him, but he's kind of doing his own thing. He left ATT in March, I believe. And he has a house in Port St. Lucie right now. So it's just me, him, Jose Shorty Torres, Hannah Goldie, and a few other fighters that he's having come stay with him. But he's really focusing on us. So it's really, we're doing everything every single day. I'm either doing jiu-jitsu, stand-up, wrestling. Like, it changes every single day. So then I want to be dangerous from anywhere. I want these girls to be scared of me if I'm on the feet or if I'm on the ground. So right now, obviously, my bigger threat is on the ground, but I'm trying to not make you feel safe anywhere you are when you're in the cage with me.
Well, now I'm scared, and I feel worried. Never crossed that line. So Dean, as someone I really consider a close friend of mine, everybody knows, just who he is and who he's worked with and the work he's done. For you, Gillian, what does Dean Thomas the coach, the person, what does he mean to you?
I hold him on a pedestal. Like I started at his gym when I was 16 years old, and I guess I didn't really notice all the time and effort he put into me back then, because I didn't really appreciate it as much. I didn't know who he was necessarily, you know. I just came into the sport and started training, and he saw potential in me. He saw that I'm dedicated and I work hard. Like, you can tell me to do anything, I'll sit there and do it, you know. So he saw my potential and he put his time in, but there was hours and hours and hours when I was an amateur fighter getting paid absolutely nothing, where he was putting in like 2 to 3 hours a day with me, like just me personally. So it's like he took me from nothing to the UFC. Like, I used to volunteer with animals. I never played a sport in my life, and now I'm in the UFC. So I think that's a tribute of his talents.
Okay, what animals? What animals were you working with?
I volunteered at the Humane Society first, and then I started a wildlife organization, like a wildlife rehab organization. And then I started at a horse rescue too. So it was like, that was my life before I started training.
Now, is this something like you still have, like, are you passionate still about it? Is it something like, obviously it's hard when you're training, you know, multiple times a day for many hours, but like, is this still a passion of yours?
Oh yeah, no matter what, animals, that's where my heart is. So it's like, I've got 3 cats in my bed with me right now. I've got my dog on my side, and they're all rescues and they're my heart. But like you said, with training, it just gets too rough to be able to put in as much time to volunteer work as I used to.
So, stepping away from kind of just the background of Gillian Robertson, let's talk about kind of what's going on in this world right now. Obviously, COVID-19, then we had the protesters and the police brutality, all that. I mean, you're from Canada, but and you know, there's always the jokes of, you know, people up there are a lot nicer, and I've got to say, you've been really nice throughout this interview, and very easy to get in contact with on my end. So it's very, very easy to work with you. But when you see everything that's going on in this country right now, and you seem like a truly just a great person, not just a great fighter. What's your message of how we can get out of this for the better?
I guess that's a big question there. With everything that's going on, it's just, it's really, how do you approach it? You know, like you said, with the COVID and the police brutality, and it's just so much in the world is going on right now. And yeah, I guess I don't necessarily know all the answers for that. How do we approach it? Like, how do you change other people's mindsets, or how do we take a safer approach to the whole COVID thing? Because it's like, numbers are just going up every day. So, yeah, I'm really not sure how to answer that.
How have you pushed through? I'll change it towards that. How have you pushed through all the stuff? I know every place is different. Like, I'm in New Jersey, and it's like, I know I can fully admit to you and everyone watching this podcast, like, I'm getting close to my snapping point. I want to go back. I want to work. I want a new job. Like, you know, this is not my full-time job. So I want to do things now. I want to visit friends and go places. But I also know that's incredibly ignorant of me to say when numbers are going up, like you said. So I'm getting close to my point where I'm just like, I just will do anything for a little bit of freedom, a little bit of normalcy. How have you pushed through?
I guess it really hasn't been different for me either, because like I said, Dean Thomas has his own gym right now. So it's his house, and he matted out the garage. So that's where we're training out of right now. So it's not like I'm like interacting with a lot of people every day doing that. We're staying focused. We're still getting our work in, and keeping our training partners to small numbers. So that's probably the biggest impact, if anything, is I don't get the same amount of bodies to work with, and don't get the different looks, you know, get to try out my new toys.
Well, I mean, you've got a great win over Cortney Casey. You just came off that win, and obviously you have Submission Underground Grappling coming soon. But let's talk about that fight against Cortney Casey. Let's go to the event, because I want to kind of touch on, you know, the differences from, when was the last time you fought? When you fought Macy Barber. If I would have told you 6, 8, 10 months after that fight, if I came to you right after that fight and I was like, hey, Gillian, your next fight is going to be in front of no fans at the Apex, and you're going to have a nose swab up your nose because there's this crazy virus, you would have been like, shut the hell up. Who the hell are you? But that's where we are. What was it like for you coming into that fight with the UFC's protocols, the no crowd, all of that? Did it change anything for you?
I absolutely loved it, honestly. Like, obviously for the crowd, and I was supposed to actually perform in front of, it was supposed to be UFC Saskatoon on the same day. So that was supposed to be the card that I was on June 20th. So that was upsetting. I didn't get to perform in front of the Canadian crowd. But like the whole protocol of it, it's like you don't get to see anybody fight week. You're kept pretty much like very quarantined there for the UFC, and it's the no fan situation while fighting. I think it makes fighters perform better. Like it gives you a clear like train of thought. There's not as much pressure, and you can hear your corners. It's just like the only way I could describe it was overly chill. Like it was so relaxed in there in the cage. Like I didn't feel like there's just not the same amount of pressure. And yeah, I really like it. And I feel like all the fighters are performing better like this. And even as a fan, I like watching it better like this, like hearing the sounds of the leg kicks and shit like that, or hearing what people are saying to their corners or how they're interacting with the other fighter. Like I've never noticed how much fighters talk shit until this quarantine. And now you can hear it all in the cage.
Yeah, no, you can absolutely hear it. And let's go back to the Cortney Casey fight. You heard her corner say some stuff, didn't you?
No, it was actually her who said it.
Oh, that was her who said it. Yeah, right. You're right. Yeah.
Whenever I got off of her at the end of the second round, she was like, she's like a fucking blanket. It's like, for my first thought, I'm like, you're not supposed to say that around me. Like, that's just a confidence boost, you know? I'm walking back to the corner for a third round, and I know that she doesn't want me on top of her anymore.
Well, and I got to say, like, that, you know, I think that's part of it, that what you're describing, a lot of fans and people watching, they don't necessarily take that into consideration when they're watching these fights. They're like, oh, they can hear the sound, so it's different. They're like, oh, this is so cool, but they don't. And for some people, maybe they can't hear the shit talking. I know I've heard it, but you don't take into consideration, like, I can hear everything your corner's saying. I can hear what you're saying. I can tell by your body reactions. And you talked about the confidence booster, and at some point we'll have fans again. But do you feel like having these moments or these fights right now will help not only yourself, but a lot of fighters learn from this experience and help grow them in their career?
Oh, yeah. I feel like every fighter, they're just, like I said, fighters are going out there and performing better. And it might just help you mentally in that aspect, because really that's all the crowd is doing, is adding another like mental block on top of everything you already have to do. So it's just kind of taking that away. But if you like mentally know that you can go out there and be calm as anything and go perform, and it's the same scenario, like the fact that the fans are there aren't going to change whether she's going to beat me or not, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's get into something that was one thing I do love is you carry so much Canadian pride, and like I honestly love it. Like it's amazing. I love when fighters carry their backgrounds with them. Some people just want to be an MMA fighter. They want to be in the UFC and they just want to fight, and I'm a fighter and screw you. But like Canada has something to be proud of in you, Gillian, and I think it's amazing. And I'm again so lucky we're talking on Canada Day. For you being Canadian, what does that mean as you progress through your career? Not only as a fighter, but you're growing as a person, as a woman, and you fighters have a great platform to show everyone, not during COVID, not during police brutality, but during life. Like, hey, I lost my last fight against Macy Barber. I just won this fight against Cortney Casey, and I did it through extreme circumstances. So what does it mean to you to have that Canadian background and be Canadian?
Even just like I said, I was supposed to perform in front of Saskatoon, and like my first time ever performing in front of a Canadian crowd was in Edmonton against Sarah Froda, and just the vibes out there, it's absolutely insane to have just the whole crowd cheering. Like that's one thing that I definitely miss with the fans. I'm like, when I was celebrating after my fight, it almost felt awkward. But with the Canadian fans there especially, it's like there's no way to describe that feeling. It's just absolutely like a dreamlike state. So I'm more than proud to be Canadian. I haven't lived there, and like I grew up in Florida, but my grandparents still live in Canada, and it's always home to me.
Do you plan on going back when this is all like, when there's no worldwide pandemic, did you ever split your time? Not like training time, but take some time off, go back home? Like, did you ever go back?
Oh yeah, I've always gone. Like I said, my grandparents live up there currently, so I've gone back constantly to go visit. And yeah, there's no way to describe it, but it's really just always giving me that home feeling every time I go back. And yeah, I love it there. It's definitely home to me.
I can see in the smile you love talking about home. I would be breaking the norm if I didn't go back to something we talked about, and just how you talked about, hey, I was 16 when I started training with Dean, and I was doing wildlife and all this stuff. And that leads me to wanting to know something. And instead of just talking about the headlines and the fights and all that, just getting to know Gillian Robertson, the person, not just the fighter. At what point was it your first training session? Like, when did you have that moment with yourself, like, I want to become a fighter? And why did you, like, what pushes you to keep fighting?
I guess I just kind of fell into it more than anything else. Like, I just started, because I really don't know why I started training kickboxing. I just started it for some reason. And then one of my friends, he did wrestling at my high school. So he started the MMA program, and he was like, oh, why don't you join me? And I thought, why not? Like, I'll have a training partner then. So I started doing that, and I was just training like 2 nights a week. Then it picked up to 4 nights a week. Then it picked up to every night, then twice a day. And it was like, I just kept on doing more and more and falling into it. And then I guess I was training so much that when I turned 18 years old, they were like, well, why don't we get you an amateur fight? And I did that and obviously fell in love with it. And just having Dean there with me, like, when I was a high-level amateur, I knew that I could, like, I was competing with girls who were in the UFC already. I was still at that level, at least on the ground with them, you know? So I knew that I was capable of making it somewhere always. So I always believed in myself because of that. I knew where my skills were at, and I knew where my technique was at.
Well, and we saw this past weekend, Kay Hansen made her debut. She got a nice win. But then, like, when she wins, the Ronda Rousey, congratulates her because of the armbar victory. And it's like, it started the whole conversation again about the UFC is still relatively young, given comparison to all the other sports in North America. But even more fresher and more new is, women in the UFC. And when I look at someone like yourself who has a rising career, stays active, great personality, like, to be a woman UFC fighter and being young, do you feel like you can continue to set the road and the path for those younger female fighters who will come after you?
Oh yeah, and like you said, the sport is so young. Literally, Ronda Rousey made her debut. It was like, I want to say like 7 or 8 years ago, So that's how long women have really had a place in MMA. Like, we've had a place to go, a place to grow in MMA. So it's like, just thinking about that is absolutely mind blowing. And actually, when I beat Cortney Casey, I beat Ronda's record for the most submissions in the UFC. She was tied with me and Cynthia Cavallo and a couple other girls, I believe. So to even like see that at my age that I'm able to beat Ronda Rousey's record for the most submissions ever in women's UFC is like, that's crazy to me. And to see little girls coming up who are like 5, 6 years old, and that's what they want to do. They want to be an MMA fighter because they see us girls being able to do it. That's awesome. Like, they're gonna be little ninjas growing up, It's so cool to see little girls like that.
And it's powerful, and that's through all the chaos that we're going through, in this country, in this world, like, these are the conversations I like to have, because, like, if we walk outside and we go, oh great, another day of lockdown, and I'll watch this interview, I'll watch that, and it's the same thing over and over. It's too repetitive. So I love hearing that. But now, as we get ready to wrap this up, I'll go to what everybody wants to hear. So you beat Cortney Casey. I mean, you said, like you said, you have the new submission record. What's next for Gillian Robertson? Like, are you taking time off after SUG? Like, what's next?
Time off isn't my friend. After I fought Macy, they waited 8 months to give me a fight, and that absolutely killed me. So we were talking to Mick right after my fight, and he said, hopefully maybe September they're going to give me a name. So I'm sitting by the phone waiting for the call. As soon as they want to get me back in there, I'm ready.
I've been telling people either on the show or off the show, like, hey, maybe if you should just, I think I was talking to Lauren Murphy. I said, if you're going to go on a vacation, you and the husband should just go to Abu Dhabi, and in case your phone rings, you're like, oh my God, I'm right here. That's so nice. So, I mean, Gillian, if you get really bored after SUG, like, just go hang out in Fight Island. Are you excited to see what they do in Abu Dhabi?
Oh yeah, I'm super excited. I'd love to be on one of those cards. I'd take a short notice fight to go to Fight Island any day.
Is there someone you want? Because this division is so new, and we saw Cynthia come up, from 115 to 125. and beat Jessica Ai, automatically the second ranked, or gets right into the second ranked contender position in that division. Your record continues to grow. Your growth shows in every fight. Like, you're not someone people need to be overlooking right now. I think you're a real problem in the division. Who do you want?
So just looking at the rankings over the last couple of days, Cortney Casey was ranked until 3 days before I fought her, and then the UFC decided to change it. So I believe they put Molly McCann at the number 15 spot, who I've already beat her, so I'm not really interested in that one. Jiyeon Kim would be 14, who she's got a matchup coming up. And then 12 and 13 would be Antonina Shevchenko and then Montana De La Rosa, which I believe they're both available. And that would put me in the rankings, that made me jump up a couple spots. So both those names I would be very excited to stand across the cage from.
You can sign me up for either of those fights. So what should we expect when we fire up UFC Fight Pass for Submission Underground when you're there?
Oh, I'm just going through whatever I can, no matter what. It's so much different when you're not getting punched in the face. So I just want to be attacking submissions constantly. It's sub only, so it doesn't even matter if you end up in a bad position. You just got to keep on attacking. So that's what I'm going to be doing, just going for the sub.
So before I let you go, you brought up a great point there, because there is nothing else going on and it is sub only. Like, how do you prepare for something like that compared to, obviously, and I'm not saying obviously you would train wrestling, train striking, all that, but mentally, how do you prepare to go into something that's really your forte? It's your nature to take people's necks, choke them out. But for this, it's just straight, get to the point.
Oh, mentally, this is playtime for me. I'm just excited to do this. It doesn't stress me out. During MMA fights, I have to sit there in the back locker room and think, okay, I got to walk out there and do this, really pump myself up for it. But for jiu-jitsu, it's second nature to me. I love it more than anything. So it's just going out there and having fun.
Well, I think your jiu-jitsu is a staple in the UFC. Obviously, you're setting records. You're getting wins. You deserve to be ranked. And I mean when I say I think you're a real problem in this division. And let me just say, and I'll say it on the show for everyone to hear this, thank you for coming on. You're somebody I've wanted to have on this podcast for a while, especially as I saw you and Dean grow together. I mean, he could tell you after any of his fighters fight, if you guys come out with W's, I'm texting him right away. I'm like, congrats, coach. And I don't know if the man has his phone on him all the time, but after your win, he texted me back 30 seconds later. I was like, was your phone open? How does this work? So thank you, because you're someone I've truly wanted to interview for quite some time, and I'm happy we're able to talk today.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Awesome. Gillian Robertson, everyone. We roll on here on the On the Mic podcast, and we're not going to just talk to one winner. We're going to talk to two winners from a recent event at the UFC Apex. And you saw him in the main event. He's a heavyweight contender. I don't care what anybody says, including Dana White. He's not just a contender. It's hard to argue the fact that he deserves a title shot right now. You can't. You want to debate it? I'll go toe to toe with you there. He's the one and only from Chicago, Curtis Razor Blaydes. Curtis, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Yeah, of course. First time we're doing video, and it's been a while since we chatted. But man, you just continue to roll on right now. There's a lot I want to talk to you about, both in the UFC and in your hometown of Chicago. But let's just start with the fight. And I want to address, and I'm sure you're so sick of talking about it, but I want to address, you came out earlier that week. You said what you were going to do. You went into the cage and did exactly what you said you were going to do, and you still get criticism. I don't understand it.
I mean, I understand it. I make Dana White's job harder. It's hard of him to promote and push me as a star because I grapple, and that's his job to promote. It's my job to fight. I'm doing my job, and he just wants me to do it in a different way to make his job easier. But that's just, wrestling's always gonna be the easiest path to victory for me. So he's just gonna have to be, he's not gonna be a fan, but that's all right with me, because I want to keep winning.
And I want to get your thoughts on this because I think it's something that it's not spoke about enough. You know, obviously, you know the sport of boxing. You know, so many times there's mandatories and title challengers, and they never get those opportunities, or they get them 8 years too late. Like in the UFC and in MMA, you literally cannot deny. Most of the time, 98% of the guys who deserve a title shot, they get their title shot. It's so hard to be like, well, we're going to pull the 10th ranked guy for a title fight. So if you could talk on that, like no matter what, your title shot is coming.
Yeah, that's why I'm not too pressed about it. I know as long as I keep winning, I've already beaten majority of the division besides the guys ranked above me, Ngannou, DC, and Stipe. And those are the guys I want. Give me one of those guys. They're going to keep giving me guys ranked 8 spots below me. I'm going to keep beating them. And you're going to have to keep dealing with me. I'm not going to lose.
Two-part question here then, based on what you just said. One, when did you, and maybe it's been your entire career, so forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but when did you just kind of just set it, especially at this level in the UFC, be like, I know what you guys like as fans and what the promotion like. I'm going to stick to what I do because I win. Was there a certain fight or a certain moment where you were just like, or has this always been your thought process?
It's always been my thought process. Even as an amateur, even on a regional level, I'm a better wrestler than everyone I've ever gone against. So why wouldn't I use that? If I was a better boxer than them, I wouldn't wrestle. I would box them. And my striking has improved a great deal, but like I said, wrestling is always the easiest path to victory. Like if you can end my wrestling like Junior Dos Santos did, then yeah, I'll strike. But you have to make me strike. If you allow me to take you down, I want to do it over and over and over and over.
Yeah, absolutely. So the second part of that question is, why is it because you want to keep winning or you want to stay active? Because some people be like, no, I'm not fighting guys 6 spots below me, 7 spots below me. Why do you take these fights?
They're not a threat. I know I'm gonna win. I just believe in my training. I believe it's easy money. You want to keep giving me guaranteed win bonuses? I'll take them.
I love it, man. I know, I absolutely love it. And I know, you know, before the trilogy was finally made, you know, you obviously were vocal about it. Like, let put a fight together at the top of this division. But now that it's set and you're coming off this win, are you happy about where the heavyweight division is at the top of the chain right now?
Well, yeah, I'm happy only because there's going to be some movement now. Like there's going to be upward trajectory possible now. Because before, I was in a spot where I keep beating guys, and I want one of the guys above me, but I know the guys above me all have like preordained matchups. So I have to wait for those matchups to come to fruition. And now the matchups are finally here. After DC versus Stipe, they'll probably do Ngannou versus. I don't know if Stipe is gonna retire, but I heard DC is gonna retire, win, lose, or draw. So I guess regardless, they'll do Ngannou versus Stipe. Either Stipe has the belt, or they'll do a vacant belt, Ngannou versus Stipe. And I'm next. So I might do another one. I might have another fight in that time span, depending on how long it takes to get Ngannou.
Go ahead.
It just depends on the time frame. Like I might do another one, or I might wait. It really just depends on the time frame.
Where do you stand for the rest of this year? Like, do you want to fight again this year? I know that fight between DC and Stipe will happen in August. You know, it's been a crazy time in this world. You cemented yourself, like I said, to start this off. It's hard to bet against you right now or to argue that you don't deserve a title shot. So where are you at for the rest of 2020?
Like I said, I could possibly see me going against if Jorginho beats Junior, I'll take Jorginho. Or if Derek Lewis gets past Alexei Olenek, I'll take Derek Lewis. One of those guys, if they both happen to win. There's a lot of unknowns because if those guys both lose, then there isn't anyone else for me to go against. I'll just have to wait.
Right. Now I want to kind of one last thing on the Dana White thing, and then I kind of want to talk about just Curtis Blaydes the person, not just Curtis Blaydes the fighter. When Dana White is coming out and saying these things, and I know you mentioned like you make it harder for him, but your job is to fight, his job is to promote. You're not backing down from the way you fight. You're not backing down talking about fighter pay. You're not backing down calling for a deserved title shot. When you say all of these things, do you think you and Dana could ever see eye to eye on anything? And also to that, why is speaking about fighter pay so important to you?
Well, on me and Dana White ever seeing eye to eye, it wouldn't be that hard for me. He just has to respect me. I feel like he don't respect me. He don't respect what I bring into the octagon. He doesn't respect the hard work I put into my camps to do what I'm able to do. Because to wrestle for just a three round fight is extremely difficult. To do it for a 5-round fight, I took everything I had, and he doesn't respect that. So that would be probably the biggest thing. That's probably the biggest hurdle for us to get over, is he has to respect me. Because I respect him. Like, I understand what he did for the company. I've watched the YouTube videos. I know the history. I know what he did. Like, he took a chance in the beginning when the UFC wasn't what it is today. It wasn't like $1 billion industry. It was a major risk. And I appreciate that because now he's helped create a platform for guys like me to be able to go out and earn a profit and feed our families. So I appreciate that. But beyond that, I don't like how, like, you brought up the money. I don't like how he thinks it's all right that we only get like 18% of the profit revenue. Like, how do you go to sleep at night like, yeah, I'm doing a good job? Like, no, bro, that's wrong, and wrong is wrong. I'm gonna call it out when I see it.
I think to your point, this past weekend, a fight of the year contender, really a classic fight. Dustin Poirier.
You know how much they made?
Yeah.
He made 300. Like, are you serious? He's gonna be hurting for at least a month. He's gonna be in bed. He's not gonna be able to do the things he wants to do with his kids because his knees hurt, his ribs hurt, his head's hurt. You paid him 300 grand. That's how much he grossed. How much did he get the net? We don't know because you gotta pay manager, you gotta pay striking coach, jiu-jitsu coach, maybe a wrestling coach, maybe a strength conditioning coach. You got your taxes, you got bills that's probably due, car payments, all. Like, he gets the net like maybe 100 grand. 100 grand.
For that war.
And that's why I don't stand in Bang. Why would I stand in Bang, put my body through all that, and just see 100 grand? I can make the same money and not be as hurt by wrestling.
You're absolutely right. And I think that proves your point. And then Mike Perry also proved your point, talking about taxes.
Like, yo, they take all our money before you even get to spend it. You give us this money, but you're not really giving us the money we deserve.
Do you think and all the rumors are that they'll get away from the Reebok deal, and I don't know what's next. Do you think that a new sponsor coming in and kind of becoming the new outfitting, sponsor of the UFC, do you think they would look to, or do you hope they look to open that door back up for new sponsors?
I hope they do. Like, if they understand the business that they're getting into, they need to understand that MMA, guys who fight, we're not rich. Even the ones at the top, at the very top, they're wealthy. They're not rich. Wealth can disappear. When you're rich, that's just forever. And none of us rich. Well, McGregor's rich, but he did that in boxing.
Right.
So you gotta take him out. John Jones is the richest MMA fighter, and he doing good. He can make some more money,
Right. I mean, I recently went down memory lane and watched some of the press conferences, and you hear between McGregor and Mayweather, and you hear Floyd talking about making $500 million throughout his boxing career, and it's like, hold on. You know, Floyd could pay the whole UFC
boring.
roster with that.
He fights hella boring, but you know what? He don't be hurt. His body's not gonna be hurt. A decade from now, he's gonna be good. He's gonna be. I don't know if he's got kids or not, but if he does, he'll be able to go to the games, go to the whatever, go to the beach with them, and actually pick him up and toss him. He's not gonna have all these old injuries. He don't get hit. I love that about him.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Now the transition over to what we're talking about, to talk about Curtis Blaydes, the person, man. I know you're a father now. You know, congrats. We haven't spoken since you become a father, so I'm very late on it, but congrats. Father's Day just recently passed. You're doing so much, Curtis, in your career, but we also have a crazy time. Like we're living amongst the craziest times I think we've ever seen. You know, in hundreds of years, and I'll get to part of it in a moment when we talk about Chicago, because that's where we're both from. But man, with this pandemic and everything you went through to get and have this fight, and we talk about fighter pay, how much more of you being a father, not just that you want to win, but that you have a little one to protect, care for, look after, provide for, where you like, I'm going to fight my way because I got a family. And you know what I'm saying?
That's my main driving, like, my force. Like, I'm not here to entertain y'all. I know that's what y'all think. I'm here to get a paycheck and get the most I can get. Now, yeah, I can probably get a bonus if I knock a guy out, but I can also get an injury suspension for 8 months because I got knocked out. Like, it's not worth it. Like, I'd rather get the win bonus and make sure that I have the most I can get for my daughter. It's not. I know fans don't want to hear this, but it's not about the fans. It's not. Like, I appreciate y'all for watching. I appreciate y'all for spending your time and your money, but I'm not going to. I'm already risking my life. I'm not going to further compound the risk by doing risky moves. If I can take you down and hold you down and elbow you to death, I'd rather do that. You can't hurt me if you're on bottom. Why not?
Yeah, and I remember being in Chicago when you did just that against Alistair Overeem, and I got to tell you, man, that was one of the nastiest things I've ever seen. Because
people would have been like, "Oh yeah, that was dope," but it would have been way cooler had you did it on the feet. Why?
No, I'm here to tell them no, because I got lucky. I got some really good seats for that with actually a good friend of both of us, Mikey. And Mikey and I were there, and I remember going towards the side where you guys exit out, and I was like, dude, that man's towel is covered in blood. He's still leaking. So I'm here to tell the fans, it didn't matter that it didn't happen on the feet. That was brutal, man. It was one of the worst, for me, like, endings to get back to the locker room I've ever seen. It was brutal.
Yeah. It was. That's what I mean. Like, it's all, like, everything we do in there is violence. Why do you care if the violence is on the ground or on the feet? Like, that's one thing about MMA I still don't understand. It's like you like the sport, but you don't like all the sport. You don't like the grappling aspect. Then you don't like MMA. You like kickboxing. You like Muay Thai. You don't like MMA.
And I think the sad part about that is that if you brought that up, if you said that to fans and you were like, well, you don't like wrestling, you don't like jiu-jitsu, you must like glory kickboxing. They'd be like, what is glory kickboxing? So
exactly.
they don't know what they're watching. But I also think it's an embarrassing thing to admit, but fans are too focused and have this Neanderthal mindset of like a Roman Coliseum, like kill him, take his head off. And it's so frustrating. As a martial artist, Curtis, why, and I mean, you've been talking about this whole time, but how can fans, and what do you think fans should do? Is it watch old fights, get in the gym, learn these things? Yeah.
Watching the history. I watch so many videos on YouTube. There's this page called MMA on Point. It makes some great videos, a lot of historical, a lot of informational stuff about MMA, about Pride, about the UFC. Like, I've learned so much just from watching those videos. A lot of people don't get jiu-jitsu is the birth of MMA in this country. I don't know about around the world, but in this country, jiu-jitsu is what sparked off MMA, because without jiu-jitsu, we're just boxing or just kickboxing. It was jiu-jitsu that opened the rules up, and then we just expanded off that. We started elbows, there's knees, but it started with, let's mix boxing with a bit of grappling. Let's see what happens. A lot of people don't get that. They think, I don't know what they think, but they don't understand that jiu-jitsu and grappling is like in the DNA of MMA. Like if you remove that, it's a different sport.
Now I want to transition a little bit over to some of the more serious things, man. I know we talked about your daughter, but there is a lot going on in this world, man. Curtis, I mentioned a good friend of ours, Mikey O. Now I'm in Jersey, but obviously, as you know, we're all from Chicago, and I remember just the way him and I would interact for a Curtis Blaydes fight. And I'm just curious, man. You cemented your place. You're not afraid to speak up. Your name is known. Curtis Razor Blaydes is known around the country, around the world. People know who you are. Do you ever take a moment when you're there in Colorado with your family and just think about the kid who was from Chicago, and you took a chance on yourself, you bet on yourself, and you've gotten to where you're at today?
Yeah, I think about that all the time. I think that's one of the best things about my job is I got to do it the hard way. Like, there's not a lot of help in MMA. Like even guys like a Sage Northcutt, he still had to fight. Like, even though he had all the push and he didn't have the hardest opponents, you have to earn your way into the UFC. And after me doing it the way I did it, the experiences I gained from that, I hope to use to be able to take from those experiences and be able to pass on to my daughter, because her life isn't going to be as hard. That's the goal. That's my goal, to make her life as smooth as it possibly can be. But I don't want her to forget where her dad came from, like how we got to where we are.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, listen, if people don't know, I encourage them to go read up and learn about you and, being from Chicago. And, man, to go to the COVID situation, what was it like for you training and then fighting in the empty arena and having to adjust to the pandemic?
Well, as with the camp, it wasn't as big of a difference. Because I only train with the heavyweights and the light heavyweights. There's about a group of 8 of us. So we basically just got together and did our own thing. We did the same workouts, just in a smaller group. And it was actually better. We got more hand-on helping. Coaching. We got more work done because we weren't like going at the speed of a whole class. We were going at the speed of us 8 guys. We were going through stuff like at a much quicker speed, and I kind of prefer it that way.
Yeah, and I just want to, as you're talking here, I want to just bring something up, and I'm sure you're gonna be like, yeah, please, thank you for saying this. But when people talk about the fact, he doesn't stand up and bang, he doesn't meet in the pocket, I don't think people also realize, like, you do that in training. Like, you train strike.
I spar. When I spar, I don't even use my wrestling. I just stand up the whole
It's so crazy
practice.
to me. It's like people don't realize that you go through all of that on a day-to-day basis. But what was it like? I've talked to a lot of fighters during this pandemic, and man, did you like it? I'm hearing a lot of people say they like the smaller cage, they like no crowd, they got to focus more.
The smaller cage, initially I thought it would be to my advantage, but after being in there, it was more of a detriment, because the way I wrestle, I need more space to get speed to really like drive over guys. And with the smaller octagon, with us being heavyweights, it only takes 2-3 steps and our butts on the cage. And that kept happening in my fight with Volkov. He's actually bigger than me. Well, not heavier, but taller and with longer dimensions. So I would shoot, and he would take one hop step, and his butt's on the cage, and he did really good at like using the cage to help him stay upright and not go to the ground. I think had it been a bigger cage, I would have been able to take out his knees before he's able to get to the cage and use it to prop him up. So I actually prefer the big rocking guy.
What about the no fans? Did you like that?
It didn't bother me at all. Once I go in there, I got blinders on. Like it's hard to appreciate what's going on outside of that cage because there's a guy standing across from you who wants to knock you out. So
Right.
I was pretty locked in on him.
A different perspective. I like that.
Yeah.
And that's in the times that I've talked to you and everything I know about you. You're one of the very few that I could be like, no, I completely understand that because you don't feed into that stuff. Man, I do want to address something that, and you can say, and you and Dana, like you said, you respect Dana White. And I think people can say what they want, but I also think he deserves credit for pushing through this pandemic and putting on fights. But more importantly, and man, I know you're a football fan. I know you're a smart man, and you know that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever it was, when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, it pretty much ended his football career. I think and you're a perfect guy to talk to about this, when the UFC made a tribute to George Floyd, and you saw like light heavyweight Devin Clark took a knee, raised his fist, his team did that. The one thing I want to give credit to Dana White for is you guys don't get pushed off and blackballed because you made a public statement about something outside of your sport. If for you, and obviously you guys haven't seen eye to eye on some things, but with how serious, and I'll take you back to, your hometown of Chicago. I can only imagine the stories you have. And you know this, I know this from being from Chicago. It's not a pretty city to be from. It is hard out there, but I'm also not a person of color. So when you see a George Floyd incident, but then you see your boss, Dana White, go, you guys have this platform, use it how you want. Is that important to you?
It's very important. I do appreciate it. That's probably the biggest thing that he has done is he hasn't tried to censor us. He lets us use our platform. That's the best thing I can do for what's going on, and specifically the Black community, is use my platform and try our best to raise awareness. Because a lot of people are just ignorant. And I don't mean that in like a disrespectful way. I mean it in like the definition.
Right.
They just don't know. So me posting memes or me posting how I feel about the situation, it may piss off 8 or 9 people, but then it might enlighten 2 people. It's worth it to use my platform to enlighten a couple people. That's the best thing I can do for this. And I appreciate Dana White allowing me and others to continue to do that. And I also appreciate him for, he made this happen. He made the fights in Florida happen. He made the fights in Vegas happen. He built Fight Island. He's gonna make that happen. He's giving guys, like he always has to say, he's giving guys an opportunity to make some money, and we all appreciate that, because without that, I guess I don't know what I'd do. Maybe I'd be an Uber driver a couple months. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right, and just and I want to address kind of what you just said just now is that people, especially before the George Floyd incident, I was interviewing fighters and I heard criticisms like, hey, you're not asking enough about the COVID procedures and the protocols and if they feel safe. And at that point, I didn't think it was a big deal. But for a George,
about that.
But for an incident like George Floyd, I started to change what I wanted to do, and I wanted to talk to those in the Black community, because if I come on this podcast and I tell you I'm from Chicago and I've seen some stuff, but I've seen it. And I think that's a huge difference. I've seen it, I've heard it, but I haven't experienced it. And, just thinking about what I can do, how can I help? It's to give fighters like yourself and those, and not even just fighters, but those in the Black community who have a voice to speak on this platform about everything going on. So when you see a George Floyd incident, and being from a city that has such a dark cloud and an image of murders left and right, how angry does it make you?
I'm a little ashamed to say it, but I think I've become desensitized. Like I've read about it, heard about it, You remember? I don't know if you remember Laquan McDonald a couple years ago.
Yep.
That made me angry. That made me angry because they had the audio, they had the body cam, they tried to withhold it and all that. Like, that made me angry. This right here, just what happened to George Floyd, made me sad. It was sad that cop who did, I can't remember his name, screw his name, that cop, he looks eye to eye with the woman who's recording him, and there's no remorse, there's no fear of repercussions. He's like, what are you gonna do about it? That just made me sad.
And hands in the pocket too, which was even worse.
The most nonchalant. I've never watched a man or anyone on camera before, except in movies, and that ain't real.
Right.
That rocked me. Like I said, it just scared me a little more. I'm like, that could be me. Yep. I live in a predominantly white area. I'm out here in Lakewood, Colorado. Most of my neighbors are old white people. They're nice to me during the daytime. I'm scared to go out there at nighttime. And I'm scared that they're going to be scared of me. And they're going to call the cops on me, and it's going to go way left. They're going to assume I don't walk the dog at night. Like, I have a Yorkie. I don't walk him at night because I don't want to give nobody an excuse to like call the police on me.
And that honestly, man, that's sad. And you know, I thank you for bringing up Laquan McDonald, because you know, now we see a movement, now we see a push for say their names, give them justice for everyone who's been a victim in the Black community. But let's not forget, there have already been these cases, and really it starts with Trayvon Martin. But we talk about and we focus on George Floyd, but it's so sickening that the history repeats itself time and time again, and I think we can't forget that. But that's why I wanted to bring it up to you, because we're both from there, and it happened in our neighborhoods, on our streets, in our city, in our hometown. Me and you, Curtis, you know, we've walked those same streets, we've driven past those same buildings, and we've interacted. You know, I don't know how many times or if you had any police altercations in Chicago. I know I did. We've interacted with that same police department.
I've been blessed. I know a lot because my dad is a police officer, my brother's a police officer. I've been blessed. I went to high school with a lot of guys who go to De La Salle end up being police officers or firemen, or they work in the city. A lot of cops in the city know who I am. I have been stopped by police, but they recognize my last name and I get a different response. But I know that's not everybody's interaction. I know if my last name weren't Blaydes, it could go different.
With having family in law enforcement and seeing, you know, certain, and I'm not here to say defund the police, but I do believe over the next few years, we're going to see policies change. We're going to see a lot of infrastructures change.
The thing though with the defund the police, a lot of people think that means completely remove the police or completely remove the power. That's not what it means. It means take away some of the power. Right. So sometimes police shouldn't be involved in every little dispute. Like a lady walking her dog through the park shouldn't be allowed to call the cops like, hey, there's a suspicious looking Black guy walking by the pond. I need you guys to come check it out. That should not be within their power. You should be able to use the police like a dog, like go get them. So I think that's really what the hashtag defund the police. A lot of people don't understand what that really means. Like, we just want to remove some of the power, remove some of the funding. Some of that funding could be spent on the roads. Chicago got hella potholes. It could be used on the schools. A lot of bad schools in Chicago who don't have good books and just good resources. It could be used on the hospitals. A lot of hospitals on this outside. That's why a lot of people think I was raised in Naperville. I was only born in Naperville, and they got better hospitals. My mom was like, why would I want to have my baby in this disgusting looking hospital? I can drive an hour and a half to Naperville and use one of their beautiful hospitals, because my grandmother lived out there. She just used her address. That's the things you got to do, because Chicago hospitals on the south side kind of suck. That money that goes to police could be spent a lot of different ways.
Well, being a father and seeing these protests and the calls for change, and again, I do believe we'll see action, we'll see things change over the next few years. Are you at all optimistic that as your daughter continues to grow up, that things will change and things will be for the better for her?
I mean, I think they're always getting a little better. Like, you'd rather have a baby in 2020 than in 1980 as a Black person. It's always getting better. But do I think by the time she's like an old woman that Black people will be viewed as like not threats all the time? I don't know. That's going to take generations to fix.
Yeah, and it's sad. It's sad because you would think we've progressed so much from the 40s
We
to
have
50s.
though.
We have.
It used to be worse. It used to be real bad. It was out here trying to lynch people and stuff.
Yo, absolutely, without a doubt. Man, Curtis, the only thing I'm mad about this interview is you have some of the coolest, sickest gear for a fighter, and I haven't had the chance because of the pandemic to have extra cash, so I wasn't rocking any. But I was like, man, next time I talk to Curtis. But I promise you, it's on the agenda. Where can people get your gear when if they're looking to?
The link's in my Instagram bio, or you can just type in www.teamblades.com. Perfect.
So teamblades.com. Curtis, this has been amazing, man. I appreciate you opening up to me on all aspects and everything that you is going on in this world, going on with your career. Again, congrats, man. And even though I'm not in Chicago anymore, and neither are you, and man, I know the city's
still
proud
home.
of you.
It's still home.
Yeah, the city's proud of you, man. And knowing you for the time that I've known you, I can fully say I'm proud of everything you've done and where you're at in your career. I look forward to seeing what's next for you, man. It's refreshing to see someone not be like, oh, I made it, I'm this, I'm that, and it's you stick to the script.
That's what got me here. I'm gonna ride the horse that got me in this race.
Well, keep on riding that horse, because I think there's gold coming for that horse, and you as well. Curtis Razor Blaydes, thank you, man, and let's not wait too long until we talk again.
Word. Yeah, we can do another one when I get a fight announcement. I don't know when it's gonna be, but when I do get one.
And when you do get one, I'll make sure I've got some Razor Blaydes gear on deck, okay. and I promise you that. I promise you that. You can hold me to that. Curtis, thank you so much. Congrats on the win. Again, congrats on becoming a father, man, and really happy we got to chop it up.
No problem, bro. I appreciate your time.